Every year around NAMM time, ESP does an exhibition limited series. And I first started documenting these in 2022 and have kept up with them ever since. So let's go ahead and dive into the 2025 models. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. We'll start things off with this interesting eclipse. At first glance, you might see, hey, cool peg head veneer, interesting multi-tone fretboard going on with multicolored inlays, a nice smoky burst finish with what looks like a natural edge exposed. Come in a little bit closer, and you can actually see you've got some flowering and vine designs on your hardware. Starting with the pickguard, you've got that giant rose on it. But then they continue on that theme with the thorns and flowers, real wooden knobs with mother-of-pearl inserts. But viewing it from the edge, we can actually see an exposed natural wooden binding. It looks like maybe even golden fret wire. Let's see, how's the back? The neck is pretty much what I was expecting. Whole bunch of figuring, kind of a continuation on of your smoky burst paint job. But then you get an interesting piece of wood sculpted onto the heel just there, and then this appears to be a multi-layered body. So they do a comfort carve over here to expose a thin layer right there before we get to our back layer. Then you can also see some of that from here. But they have a stripe of maple running down the center. And then look at that, we've got a little butterfly on our wooden back plate, and also one over here on your toggle switch plate. If you're curious about what kind of woods we were looking at, the back is black limba, but apparently this little purfling layer here, purple heart, mixing in some zircony as well as Rex wood for our fingerboard, brass nut. These things you have to appreciate in person. Photos only do so much. The next eclipse, the design seems very familiar as far as the vines and everything. We just have a different finish on it. But this time, to match our toggle switches, it appears we've got golden knobs and a much more rustic theme between these colorations. And viewing the back, it looks like we got the black limba back here, and then maybe some sort of a dark maple. Oh, flamed walnut. Cool. Galloped nut. That's always fun. But now a Viper model, which is kind of like a slightly offset SG. Only has one humbucker, but it's got all those divots taken out of it. With a very rustic finish, looks like a marble piece or something. But mixing that with being super high gloss, that's just going to be gorgeous. But then our pickguard has an interesting circular bullseye-like pattern. Now, if you actually come over here and look closely at the inlay work, parasol dipping into the water. So this would be the continuation of that whole phenomenon in the water, is the way I interpret this design. But then they continue that on with your knob just a little bit. But of course you've got figured woods over here for your binding, and then it looks like bird's eye something up here. And okay, now that I see this up close, that's the reflection of our little umbrella. In the back, as far as these exhibition models go, relatively plain, but I like what they've done here. I would love to see that on a production level guitar. And of course you got a little coffin-like backplate there. But the body seems pretty basic with just hunter and mahogany. And they're saying that's a metallic green and gold and silver Ranchi paint. If you happen to fall in love with one of these and you need to buy it, usually how this works is ESP does a lottery drawing system to see where the guitar goes, and then it comes up at a dealer. Some of these might have already been sold. Maybe they're still on the way. You'd have to reach out to ESP. They can at least let you know what dealer might have gotten it in stock. But please remember, these are really expensive art guitars. If you're thinking these are like $5,000, $8,000, nah, usually they're like $20, $30. Like the cheapest is going to be like 10-ish. But our next one here is what ESP calls the Arrow, an offset flying V type thing with a Floyd Rose. It seems they've done a very similar paint job to this one as we just saw on the SG, but I like this little touch right here because there's naturally another arrow shape forming right there. So they accent it with like some flames coming off of it. But then, all right, they incorporate your output jack right there, really distressed looking pickups, and then the continuation of our inlay work. This photo, you can really see how comfortable those pickup rings would be. But you can see more binding over here. Whoa, would you look at that on the edge? Side marker inlays getting fancy, my friends. And then this is actually wood put into the fretboard. Whereas you've got a turquoise material around a similar crazy tiger striped interior. That's pretty sweet. And then you've got some metal working for your ESP logo. This one is the only one out of this new series that is currently still on reverb. Here's a look at the case that this one comes with, as well as your COA. And they are asking $32,000, and that's at Haggerty's Music Works. Now we've got an FRX guitar that has some very interesting wood grain. Whether you like this body shape or not, I just enjoy seeing lutheirs go to work and bringing interesting woods together. But their wood of choice for this one is redwood. It's just got a whole lot of character to it, like some bubbly magma-ness over here that's dried up into a hard crust, but yet you've got additional layers to this. That's what photos don't really show you, is this is a valley and this is a crest. And then it does the same thing over here. So it's kind of like a Les Paul shape. It just has this other weird stuff added on. And it looks like you're still going to be able to feel that if you have this guitar in your hand. But this really cool multicolored fretboard is persimmon wood. We have seen that a time or two in the exhibition series. Then your headstock has a continuation veneer of what we saw on our body. If I remember correctly from previous years, usually it's a brass insert around it, and then they put a wood inside there for our dot inlays. But what's our back looking like on this one? All right. That must have been the theme this year. A faux granite / bowling ball look. I'm sure there's something in Japanese culture that I don't know about that they're channeling. Because you gotta remember, this is a big year for them, their 50th anniversary. But you've got a redwood trem cover plate. Your actual control cavity plate has the continuation of all the other finishes that you're seeing here. And that works all up the neck as well. Hoping to see a side profile shot, but this is the closest I could find. Because yeah, remember, this is like a solid black back with some splatters in it. But the top is still that exotic redwood. So when you play it and you're looking down, you're going to get kind of a blending of the two. Our next one is a snapper. It reminds me of a babbling brook. Like you've got some stones at the bottom and the water's running over top of it. But at the same time, it makes me think of a honeybee hive. A nice golden caramel color of all the sweet, sweet honey that they're making. But they are advertising that as a spalted maple top. But to me, that looks like a double-layered pickguard, which is a fascinating concept. I wonder if you remove these screws, are you going to find other screws for the what's underneath it, or did they just line those all up? I've never thought about doing something like that before. That's fun. But you gotta love the Cocobolo fretboard. Pretty basic here, but then it starts getting really exotic in your cowboy chord area. With some darkness, lightness, a whole bunch of ringies, and then a matching spalted headstock. But you've got the ESP logo and what looks like a really exotic abalone or something similar. Well, you know what? Upon better look, that's like a really spacey thing for such a natural everything else. Whoa, fun's not over yet. Once again, multi-layered body. The back is also spalted maple, but as they carve it away, you reveal something different. I would have called it flame maple, but apparently it's silver heart. I'm not familiar with that wood, but it looks good to me. But you get the continuation of your stony pebble type designs for your back plates and controls, as well as your neck plate. And then look at that gorgeous neck. It's an Indian rosewood, but that's got so much good streakiness to it. Then, of course, they give you a back headstock veneer to match the back. It's another one of those guitars where it's kind of ugly from far away, but the more you dive into it and see everything that they've done, okay, there's a lot of craftsmanship and thought that goes into these. The other snapper within this collection utilized a very similar theme, just used slightly different woods. So this one is utilizing a koa top. Now the spec sheet is telling me that this is a zirconi fretboard with maple binding as well as an additional layer of koa, but then we see this. Okay, we're gonna get colorful on the back apparently. Woo! I guess the headstock makes more sense on this one, having your ocean color theme, so that must have been a carryover thing on that first one we saw. This is jasper wood this time. That is incredibly figured, and then you get the koa on the back again, and a bird's eye maple neck. But next up, the Maverick series. Gorgeous quilty top. And then they blend it in with a Cocobolo center stripe, but it's very jagged. It kind of matches the quilty design that you've got going on over here. But I like whatever this is in the wood. I'm sure most people would view that as a defect, but it matches with what they've got going on over here. Looks like a single volume control on this one with your regular blade style switch, equipped with a Floyd Rose, and then a whole bunch of stuff going on with our fretboard, which is Cocobolo mixed with Macassar ebony. And at first I thought it was like some guy getting electrocuted, but if you look closely, I think that's actually a dragon. This is his head, whiskers, eyes, eyebrows, and then his body coming down here. According to the spec sheets, that's an Eastern dragon. But man, those colors work really well together. So dark green gets a little bit more pale here, and then you've got this rift within the body that is continued on with your fretboard, and it also continues on through your headstock, even on the edge. Wow. Okay, that is an elegant neck. That whole lightness with the dark greenness pairing together and being super exotic with the multi-piece neck, that works very well. But our back is actually made of walnut, and then you've got some sort of a center thing showing right there. You'd have to have some serious skills to be playing that. Man, even the headstock has really fancy wooden edges to it. But if the green wasn't to your taste, they did pretty much the exact same thing, but also in an ice blue. Just as a quick reminder, this is a humbucker with a smaller humbucker up here and only a single volume control, whereas our blue one is 2 normal humbuckers with an additional control. So not the exact same guitar, but you've got your Eastern Dragon here on our fretboard as well. But is there a curveball? Nope. Everything seems the same back here, with a nice royal blue neck with the whole walnut maple and more blue all coming together with sandwiches. But this one has a much more up-close look at the dragon, and the fretboard seems to be much more red. It helps it stand out. But now this model is known as the Horizon. We've got some sort of a triple fade, dark green, light green into almost pale nothing, but it's got the blingy gold hardware mixed with our wooden knobs, and then are those inlays on the pickup covers? I didn't know that was a thing. Sure enough, we've got some tree branches and flowers going on, but if you noticed, your entire fretboard has a very similar thing. You even have some tiny birds on it, and that's just such intricate detail. It's one thing to appreciate it as a person and be like, oh yeah, it's done, cool. But to create that, you have to find the very right pieces that play off together. Otherwise, it just becomes a jumbled mess. And look, your streaks within your maple fretboard makes it look like movement. The bird's going whoosh, straight through this stuff. Hey, there's another little birdie here. It's almost too angelic of a scene for such a kind of evil looking heavy chuggy chug metal type guitar. But you definitely have some fun on the back. I see 1, 2, 3, 4 different layers here for the body. They also come out over here when they're doing the side cuts. Here's a detailed look at all the specs if you'd like to pause to read it. But that's a little bit of quilted maple on the top, Buckeye burl, swamp ash, the Rex wood, and Buckeye burl. The Buckeye burl, you can color it in very unique ways. And as much as I like green guitars, I think the Blue Horizon wins this year because it has the nighttime motif to it. It's not August, beautiful bloomin' times. This is winter is starting to set in, or it's nighttime. So you go from the deep ocean blue into the natural fade. You've got nighttime scenes with your flowers, and then this beautiful moon right here around the 12th fret, and just general nighttime themes. I really do enjoy that one. And hey, this one has a really nice up-close look at that pickup cover. I have never seen anybody do inlaid wooden pickup covers like that. I never even thought of the possibility of it. Truth be told, I'm not that big of a fan of the etched pickup covers, but this I could get behind. Look at how many different pieces of pearl were used there. And then just like everything else, it's got the wooden binding too. And ooh, yeah. It still has all the crazy layers over here, but I think the blue just pulls it off better. And then that's either a black headstock back, or it's just a really dark piece of the same wood that they use down here. And the last one for their 50th anniversary celebration, you think they're gonna go big and crazy? I mean, don't get me wrong. It probably took a long time to put all these scales on, but we definitely saw crazier ideas back in 2022. But I think you'd have to feel this one, because it looks like it's made of metal. Let's see what our rundown here is. Soft maple to help them carve it. And then they're calling it snakeskin wooden carving. Okay. So it's not a metal guitar. That's all in the finishing. Can you imagine how much of a nightmare it would be to paint this guitar? I'd imagine you'd have to do it multiple times or maybe even do it by hand. I'm not even entirely sure. Then your pick guard, you have to match that up perfectly because we're either seeing through the pick guard or we're seeing the metal work within it, sitting on top of the scaly body. It might even be a combination of both. But wouldn't you have to route the body down a little bit to make that sit flush? The world may never know, but you've got those wooden pickup covers. No fancy inlays. And the back is much more subdued. You can see some more of the continuation designs. It's almost like a pick guard for your headstock. But we're rocking locking tuners, and check that out, a string tree that bridges 4 strings. And the back looks relatively tame outside of our jade lining around our back plates. Match that, we should have had a jade outline around the back of our headstock. But this top must have took all their time. And oh, okay, apparently King Cobra snake going on there. So, alright, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed checking out ESP's 50th anniversary exhibition models. Let me know down in the comments which one was your favorite. Even though I'm a Gibson guy and I love the Les Paul and the SGs, and fine craftsmanship and woodrisy, I think it's the Blue Horizon that wins for me this year, for the overall theme. However, the Green Maverick had the best finish, and complementary wooden choices. Take care.